convene the January 15th, 2025 regular board meeting to order at 7 p.m. Jackie, please call the roll.
Emily Swister.
Here.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Karen Larson.
Here.
Liz Sullivan.
Here.
Vanessa Berry.
Here.
Debbie Bryan.
Here.
Josh Martin.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 2 is opportunity for visitors to speak. Public comment is for the general public to address the board. Each person will have up to 5 minutes to provide public comment. Seeing none, we will move on to item number 3, which acknowledges that Treasurer Larson and Trustee Martin reviewed the December billings in January, and that I, President Swistak, and Trustee Bryan will review the January billings in February. Agenda item number 4 is the consent agenda. Is there a trustee who wishes to pull something from the consent agenda? No. If not, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No.
Okay, Jackie, please call the roll.
Emily Swister.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Karen Larson.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Debbie Bryan.
Aye.
Josh Martin.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 5 is unfinished business. 5A, 1 and 2 involve the capital improvement project summary and executive report. Mark Rogers could not make it to tonight's meeting, but has provided a summary for Director Weinstein. If trustees have questions about Mark's report or the summary, please forward them to Director Weinstein and she will get back to the board via email. Director Weinstein? Okay.
Very brief summary. So Mark mentioned that there's no action being requested from the board this month, but in terms of updates, the BAS project, which is our HVAC software project, the submittal process is underway with work plan to start in early February. And then the HVAC project with the actual equipment, a kickoff meeting was held on January 14th, yesterday. Both Will and I were in attendance. Submittals will be required, and once they are approved by CCS, the lead time for the equipment is anticipated to be about 10 weeks. Therefore, we're looking at installation occurring in early spring of this year, again, dependent on the equipment delivery timeframes. And then he says the contractor and library staff will coordinate work in a manner to limit any impact on public access to library materials. So if you have any questions about his report, you can mention it now, I'll take notes, or you can email me and we'll get those answers back to you as soon as possible.
Does anyone have any questions for Director Weinstein? Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 6 is committee reports. 6A is finance. Trustee Bryan?
Yep, we have a meeting planned for January 24th at 2 p.m.
Okay, thank you. 6B is personnel and policy.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. 6C is physical plan.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. And 6D is strategic planning. Director Weinstein?
I do have a mention in my director's report about the survey, but what I'll say here is that once the survey is completed, we will then reconvene as a committee and talk about the outcomes.
Great, thank you. Okay, agenda item number 7 is staff reports. 7A is the director's report. Director Weinstein.
Okay, so I'll begin with that survey. As mentioned last month, we soft launched that survey at Winterfest where 23 patrons completed the survey that evening. And we've also created a postcard as directed by the committee to mail out to all district residents with a QR code as well as an email address or link to the survey. And as the committee agreed to, that survey will run through the end of February. And then the committee will then meet again to review the outcome, and then we will start advancing the written plan forward. Next, onto Hokusai information. On January 7th, the village hosted a presentation by COD as well as Pulse Studios here in Lisle to outline ideas for a community-wide Hokusai experience. So the College of DuPage's Cleve Carney Museum of Art is sponsoring the Hokusai exhibit in June of 2025 this year. And the library will join with other intergovernmental agencies, not sure exactly who yet, in creating an experience here in Lisle. So the library will participate as a leader in a community art project. We will not be, last 2 years ago, we were the kickoff agent. We're not going to be that this year. That will lie in the hands of the village, but we will participate with a community-wide art project. So again, there's still some budget questions and participation questions. The village has to handle that, but the library is committed to supporting this effort. So there's more to come on that in the future. And then under the heading of Government Affairs Committee, sounds very official. I recently attended a Government Affairs Committee meeting. It's very similar to some of the intergovernmental meetings I've attended, except this committee is run by the chamber and there are some businesses involved. But I rarely get to attend these meetings because they mostly occur on days where I have library commitments, but I was glad to attend this one. I don't actually count myself as a committee member, but again, happy to attend. The committee was finalizing questions for the mayoral candidate forum that's going to occur at Village Hall on January 28th. And the questions that they were finalizing are serving as backup questions because the goal of this forum is to have the public come sit in the audience and then ask questions of the candidates. So if there's a lull or if there's duplicative questions, then the committee will pass on some of the questions they came up with. And then moving on to the per capita grant application. This application is how the library demonstrates that we're meeting the goals as laid out in the ILA Standards Handbook. So we happily receive the grant every year and we're hopeful to continue on that same course. We expend funds on a variety of resources every year and items, mostly to supplement programming, to enhance our programming, as well as purchase duplicate materials, both physical copies of materials and digital copies of materials. So for example, this past year we used grant funds to help update the website, to bring us to a more updated platform on Drupal, as well as work with our website developer. And then we also purchased a light board for the Youth Services Department to help with story times. So that's how we spend our money. And then lastly, this isn't in my report because it occurred actually this Monday, but the department directors, IT staff, and Will and I both met with our new vendor for our catalog overlay. That is going to hopefully make searching a lot more clean for our patrons and also highlight possible programs that can coordinate with someone's online search for materials. They can tag those programs. So I'll keep you apprised of the process. It was just an introductory meeting, but we're well on our way to that new catalog overlay. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the director? Okay, thank you. Okay, 7B is Assistant Director's report. Assistant Director Savage?
Thank you. So myriad of meetings and facility stuff going on this month. One of the meetings of note was a virtual attendance of the Northern Illinois Library Facility Managers Group. So we talked about a bunch of different things that were on the docket, including lockdown protocols, facility security in general, EV charging stations were brought up again, and then facility management software. So this is a group that meets quarterly, but I'm in contact with almost constantly through email groups. And I find that the information that they can give me and the recommendations have been invaluable. So I really appreciate all the other facility managers who take part in this. It helps me out a lot. We also had Terrence come out to do, they finished all of the emergency lighting over the electrical panels. I know we talked about this a little bit last month. That is all wrapped up. That is all good. Everything is in shipshape. Stevens has come out for a couple occasions to deal with East End restroom issues. There's still a urinal in the men's room that they had to order another part for. They should be coming back next week to replace that. And fingers crossed, everything will be functioning again. Metal Master also came out. They come out twice a year to do an inspection and preventative maintenance. And then when they note other deficiencies during those inspections, then they come back out to do a little more intense labor. So they came out for their more intense repairs last week. Or earlier in the month, excuse me. Actually, it was last week, yeah. And then we had a defective smoke detector in the new elevator pit. So I had to get Johnson Controls out here because they do our security monitoring, as well as Kone out here because they're our elevator maintenance company. And then working together, they were able to figure out what the issue was, set the panel straight, and put a new smoke detector in there. So we are all good. That's all I got for today.
Does anyone have any questions for the assistant director? I feel like we talked about this before, but the heat on bathrooms continues to be an issue, like why?
I think it is just the age of those fixtures are all the same and they're reaching the end of their life.
So it's not the same one that's been having issues, like it's like a different one.
No, and it's also the plumbers have found that for whatever reason, maybe as a result of construction, there's a little more debris than they would normally see that's going through and being caught in some of the traps. So hopefully we are at the end of that cycle. They're also between construction and then, like I said, age of the fixtures. Some of the rubber gaskets are just breaking out because they need to be replaced. So
Because those, the toilets as well as urinals are old.
Yeah.
They
We
weren't
didn't replace them
replaced
with-
during
yeah,
the
renovation.
renovation.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Is that something that we need to consider replacing down the line, like in the next couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, 2 years?
I think when they recalibrate it, maybe we can get some ideas from the guys.
yeah, part of it is to not just the fixtures, but the automatic flushers are also having issues. So I'm actually working with Sloan, the company that makes those, to see if they can help me troubleshoot, or we can have a guy come out and cover that end, the electronics end. Part of it is whenever they originally installed, they're not individually wired in, they're all wired in off the same circuit. So in order to reset, you can only turn them all off or turn them all on. There is no we can mess with one. You have to mess with all of them at the same time or none of them. So hopefully Sloan is able to give me some direction and we can get things back on track.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Moving on, 7C is Adult Services Director Report, and we have Elizabeth Hopkins with us. Welcome.
I want to introduce Elizabeth Hopkins. She is our Adult Services Director, and as you all know, all of the quarterly reports are in the packet, and every time we have a quarterly, we're going to invite one of our department directors on. So, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be your special guest star this evening. I think it's a really great opportunity that we have a little bit more FaceTime with you, and I'm just delighted to be here and that I can make myself available if you have questions about my department or about my quarterly report. I wanted to use my time to have a short discussion of ebooks, because that is something that I hear come up in board meetings. I've heard it in strategic planning committee meetings. I think there's confusion, I think there's questions. So I'm going to use my time to give you an introduction to ebook pricing and ebook lending models. But I will caution you that I can only scratch the surface of this discussion. We could spend your entire board meeting talking about ebook pricing and you don't have that kind of time. So I know you all read my quarterly report. It's in your board packet. I'm sure you memorized it. There will be a quiz. But in that report, I mentioned that an adult services staff member attended an Overdrive consortium meeting. So I thought I would start there by explaining the consortium. And everything I'm talking about tonight is Overdrive, or what you might know as Libby is the app that we use, or eMedia Library. I don't want to get into it because it's too much time, but for the sake of this conversation, it's all the same thing. Overdrive is Libby, Libby is Overdrive. So in terms of the consortium, Lisle Library District is in a consortium for our Overdrive collection. That means we're in a group with 24 other libraries and we share titles and resources. This is incredibly advantageous to us because we can offer a bigger collection, a broader collection, and we can shorten wait times for our patrons if we share with other libraries. But what I think is important to note is that not everything is shared. We do buy titles just for our LLD cardholder patrons, and that's the pricing I'm going to explain today. Has anyone put a hold on in Libby and you get a message saying you're waiting in one of two lanes? Yes. Okay. So that's what that means. 2 lanes means there's consortium copies and then there's Lisle library copies. It just means that you're waiting for both in both queues and you'll get whichever copy is available first. That was Overdrive trying to tell patrons look, your library bought copies too, but it doesn't make sense to patrons because they don't know what 2 lanes means. So that's what that means. in terms of pricing, everyone take a deep breath. We're going to get into numbers. Okay. So the first thing you have to understand is that if you were to purchase an ebook as like an individual user, just as a consumer, the price you would pay is wildly different from what we pay as a library. And I know Tatiana mentioned this in a strategic planning meeting, but I'm going to give you an example. So if you were to hop on Amazon and you were going to buy an ebook copy of Verity by Colleen Hoover, which is still super popular right now, for your Kindle, you would pay $13.99, $14. And you would have access to that title, that book, for as long as you have your Amazon account. It's yours, okay? If I were to buy that title, the same ebook copy of Verity from Overdrive for the library, I would pay $75, and it's going to expire in 2 years. And then I have to buy it again for another $75 if I want to keep it. So that is the mindset you need to have going into this discussion, is the scale of pricing is wildly different for libraries.
And it's not the same for every book.
And it's not the same for every book. That was just one example. I can see ebook pricing going like between $50 and $150 a title. It is not the $8 to $14.99 that you might see on Amazon. So the other caveat that you need to understand is that Overdrive sells their titles via certain lending models. And I mentioned that in my quarterly report. I think I referenced CPC or cost per circ. So I want to break those models down because that also explains why sometimes there's a queue. So some titles are sold as what's called one copy, one user. It's exactly as it sounds. One person can check it out at a time. Some titles are sold as metered access. And that means you have to think of like the ebook has a little meter inside of it and it's going to expire. And that's usually either after 26 checkouts, after 12 months, or after 24 months. We have to buy it again if we want to keep it. More often than not, a metered access title is one copy, one user. Only one person can have it out. And then we have something called CPC, or cost per circ. This is relatively new to Overdrive. This was really exciting for us. CPC are basically titles that are borrowed simultaneously by an unlimited number of people until our budget runs out for that title. So the titles are significantly lower in price. You might pay $5.50 for an ebook and $9.50 for an e-audiobook, but they're one and done. So if one person checks out that e-audio for $9.50, it goes poof, it's gone. So that's helpful for us to shorten the wait time. So if we have a really popular book, there's 20 holds on it, we can flip a switch on CPC, fulfill all those holds, but we don't get to keep that content. So it's not really sustainable for our collection. If someone wants to read that book 6 months from now, I'm going to have to buy it again. Everybody with me so far? You're nodding. You're doing a great job. And most importantly, we don't get to pick our lending model. So even if I wanted to turn CPC on for a certain title, it might not be available as CPC. It might only be available for me to purchase as one copy, one user, or a metered access. So again, we can fulfill the holds queue with something that's popular for CPC, but I might end up having to just buy a metered access title anyway, and it's going to be $75 to $100. So now that you understand that there's not always simultaneous use, I want to break that down a little bit more, because that is what I hear more often than not from patrons, what they're confused about. There's this idea that because it's digital or because it's online, why would I have to wait in a holds queue? It should just be readily accessible to me, right? And I'm sure you guys have thought that too. We could really get into copyright, but what I want to explain is the difference between our ebooks and our print books. So there is something called a first sale doctrine, and that makes it possible for libraries to, when they purchase a physical book, a print book, we own it. It's ours. We can circulate it as many times as we want or until it disintegrates and falls apart because it's ours. We own it. When we buy an ebook copy from Overdrive, we don't own it. It's not ours. We've purchased a license to circulate it, and the license will determine how many people can access it at one time. So think of Overdrive as like the middleman or the intermediary between the publisher and the libraries. So the publisher will sell, well, let me back up. Overdrive will have an online like marketplace for publishers to sell their ebooks to libraries. And the publisher will come in and say, okay, this is how much the book costs. It's $75. Then Overdrive adds a markup because they have to make their money. And then the publisher will add rules or caveats like, okay, you pay $75 and it's going to expire in 24 months. if you're curious, the reason why the publisher does this, and this was their big explanation several years ago, was if we had a physical book, a print book, if we circulated it 26 times, or if we had it for 12 months or 24 months, we would have to replace it because the condition would be so poor. And I'm going to be very candid with you. I've done this for 12 years. That's rubbish. You know as well. We have circulated books well beyond that. So it's kind of, again, if I'm being candid, it's kind of a racket that we would have to buy that again.
Well, and
Yeah, but
sorry to interrupt.
no, please do.
But like if somebody checks out an ebook but doesn't read it,
I paid for it.
which doesn't seem fair, because if you check out a book from the library and they don't read it, like it's still in the same condition when they
Exactly.
return it.
Exactly. And keep in mind when we buy like a trade paper after our discount is going to cost us maybe $10 or $11. Our hardcover is going to cost us maybe $18 or $20, and we could circulate it forever. So the price difference is just astronomical. So the other thing I hear a lot, and this has come up in board meetings, is, well, why don't you just drop Overdrive? Like Overdrive seems like they're pretty greedy and they're too expensive. If I could. So Overdrive has cornered the market on popular titles. If we want to be able to purchase digital copies of the books that our patrons want to read, we have to go through Overdrive. They're the only ones selling those books to libraries. Exactly.
I didn't know that part of it. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. They're very smart. They're very smart. I am seeing more popular titles on Hoopla, but only in audio. So my assumption is Overdrive is just maintaining the licensing rate for the ebook copies of those titles. So I know this is a lot of information, and I'm sorry if I'm overwhelming you. I know it can be a lot, and again, I'm just scratching the surface. But my hope is that I gave you a solid introduction, and if you're ever someone who's waiting in the queue, or you're talking to your friends and neighbors and they're waiting in a queue, that you have a little bit more background knowledge to understand the why. But I don't want to be all doom and gloom. So what I want to make sure you understand is no one is more dedicated to accessibility than a library worker. That's our job, right? Our job is to connect our patrons to the information that they seek. And that could be in the form of a reference question, or it could be just getting them the book they want to read in the format they want to read it. So accessibility is like a pillar upon which we stand in the library world. And if something is getting in the way of accessibility, we get really crabby. We don't like it. So we are constantly negotiating with our vendors. We are having discussions with our reps. I'm on the phone with our Overdrive rep a lot, working with our peers at other libraries in the consortium level to try to make the user experience better. So I don't want you to think that we're like shrugging our shoulders and saying it's really expensive and there's nothing we can do. We are constantly kind of chipping away at it. I just gave you so much information. Does anyone have questions for me? And it could be about ebooks, Overdrive, or about my quarterly report, my department, anything I can help with.
So when the book expires, do you then have an opportunity to buy it for yourself? Like, do we ever have an opportunity to own the digital copy
No.
forever?
No.
Okay, so
Exactly.
so the like the popular books that eventually you just keep them in hardcover, or like the Colleen Hoover books. I mean, you wouldn't just keep renewing those forever and ever. I mean,
No.
at some point you would determine that it's run its course, and if somebody wants this, they'll just have to come get it in hardcover. Or
Exactly. Well, we don't always renew every metered title because usually the popularity fades.
Okay.
There are some copies that we do keep, like one copy, one user that's not metered. We do get to keep that,
Okay.
but we don't own it. We just have a license that we can keep it
Gotcha.
as long as we're Overdrive customers. That's the other reason we can't drop Overdrive is, well, we have a lot of books in our collection that we paid for and we would lose access. So, but no, we don't renew everything.
And they're usually 24-month.
24 months is good. They're usually 12 or 26 checkouts.
Goes fast.
Yeah, which is just ridiculous because there's nothing wrong with the digital content of that book. It's in perfectly good shape. Shouldn't have to buy it again.
Is there anything being done to try to fight the publishers on this?
Yeah. There's a lot of finger pointing because we were getting really agitated with Overdrive and blaming a lot of it on Overdrive, and then they're blaming it on the publishers, and the publishers are blaming it on Overdrive. So it was because we were sort of beating the drum and getting loud about it that they started offering better deals with your consortium. CPC was introduced. They've made CPC better, where I can add a certain dollar amount to a certain title. So I'm hopeful that we're taking steps in the right direction, but it is very, very expensive.
Is there an opportunity to increase the size of the consortium to gain more leverage against overdrive?
I think they put limits on how many people you can have in your consortium for that reason.
Kind of defeats the purpose
Yeah.
of a consortium,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
But we're lucky we have 24 libraries. That's a lot. And they're all, don't ask me to list them off. I don't have them memorized. I'm sorry, but they're all in the Chicagoland area. So there are sister
Are there
organizations.
multiple consortiums in the Chicagoland area?
Oh, in Illinois there are. Yeah,
I'm guessing they don't like collusion between consortiums.
exactly.
And there are levels of communication, so staff people like Elizabeth who run the adult services department and manages the selection of those materials. She will go to meetings with other directors of departments. They will share their information or their gripes and grievances with Rails. Then Rails will go through with ILA, and then ILA can connect with legislators on this topic. If that's
Exactly.
what you're asking. So
Yeah.
there's steps.
And that's the beauty of it, is like libraries, we're not competitors, we're just sister organizations. We just want to help each other. So even just going into a consortium meeting, we all meet ahead of time and talk about what are our goals that we want to achieve with our rep. So we have some strategy as well.
Try.
Any other questions? Do you all need to lie down? That was a lot. Okay.
No, it was interesting.
Cool. I hope it was helpful to
Very
you.
informative.
I just think
Very
of you trying to keep up with all of this has got to
a
be
lot.
It's like trying to
crazy.
hit a moving target.
Yeah,
It really
knowing what's
is.
expiring, and I'm sure there's a lot of notifications, but still, just keeping up with it has got to be.
That's one piece, and the other piece is just patrons and being frustrated, and so trying to manage those conversations with patrons
Yeah.
without a 10-minute discussion.
Yes.
It's
Right.
it's a delicate dance.
It is.
Yeah.
And we do take patron requests, so I don't want it to sound like it's just the squeaky wheel gets the grease and we're only buying the best sellers. If patrons want something and we can get it at a reasonable price, we're happy to try to do that. Again, that's our job, within reason. But anywho, can I end on a high note? Can we switch gears really quick? I want to talk about Winter Read, just our numbers. We had 493 adults sign up for Winter Read, and that's like bananas crazy. Last year we had 332. I had to emergency order more mugs. I'm told you were denied a mug. President Swistak, I'm so sorry. They're coming next week. Please come back. But this was the stress of our success. We were blown away by our numbers. We're so pleased. But anyway, if you guys ever have any additional questions or you need something more from me, please send them to Tatiana. She knows where to find me, and I'd be happy to help.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much. Have a good meeting.
Elizabeth.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Very good.
Thank you.
You're
welcome.
Moving on. Item number 8 is new business. 8A is to appoint a committee to prepare fiscal year 2025-26 working budget. As board president, I officially appoint a committee of the whole to prepare a working budget for fiscal year 25-26. In the next couple of months, the full board will review the budget as preliminarily drafted by administration. Board reviews will occur within a regular board meeting unless additional special meetings are required. Traditionally, the board will review a draft sometime in March or April and will pass the budget at the next regular meeting. All right, 8B is to approve resolution 25-01, an intergovernmental agreement with Limerick. May I have a motion and a second, and then Director Weinstein can provide a summary.
I move to approve resolution 25-01, a resolution providing for an intergovernmental agreement, the library insurance management and risk control combination, otherwise known as Limerick.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Director Weinstein?
Okay, so Limerick is our risk agency. The library is part of a pool. We're in a pool about between 60 and 70 libraries. That fluctuates sometimes. And we're part of that pool to receive the best rates. So Limerick requires us to create a resolution for the board to approve in order to be a part of this pool.
That's it. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay, Jackie, please call the roll.
Emily Swistek,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli,
Aye.
Karen Larson,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Vanessa Berry,
Aye.
Debbie Bryan,
Aye.
Josh Martin.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. 8C is to approve the per capita grant application. May I have a motion and a second, and then Director Weinstein can provide a summary.
I move to approve the 2025 Illinois Public Library per capita grant application.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. Director Weinstein.
I kind of already gave a summary, but I just wanna mention that the brief paragraphs that are in there, it's because there's a character limit in the online form, so it's not meant to be like a comprehensive overview or anything like that. But after the board approves of the per capita grant, I will submit the whole report online, and then hopefully we receive our grant monies in spring.
Any other questions about that? Okay, Jackie, please call the roll.
Emily Swistek,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli,
Aye.
Karen Larson,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan,
Aye.
Vanessa Berry,
Aye.
Debbie Bryan,
Aye.
Josh Martin.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Item 9 is an executive session. May I have a motion and a second? And then whoever makes the motion, please read aloud the full citation. We'll return to open session to conclude the regular meeting after the executive session.
I motion to move to go into executive session under 5 ILCS 120/2C1 for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Okay, so we will pause to get things ready for the executive session. Oh, yes, sorry. Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Got that part. Okay. We are now in open session at 7:40 p.m. We will move on to item 10, the opportunity for trustee comments. Vice President Martelli.
Well, I'd like to thank Elizabeth, she's gone, that was a great report, and also thank the department directors for their quarterly reports, very interesting. And that's it, basically. I hope everybody had wonderful holidays.
Thank you. Okay, trustee Berry.
Yeah, I want to thank Elizabeth for coming again, and I went to the Craft and Coffee event. I guess it's the 1 year anniversary, and there were people there that were visiting family for the holidays that like read about it online and decided to join us. So
Nice.
it was great to see it was spreading outside of Lisle too.
Thank you. Trustee Martin.
Echoing the sentiments of Director Hopkins' report, really appreciated it. Also, whether she watches this video or you tell her, the additional information regarding the electronic media is very appreciated. I know that I had asked some of those questions during strategic planning, and I appreciate the information. Incredibly disheartening to hear that there is somewhat of a it is a monopoly. It really is stacked against us. I just, out of curiosity, really quick checked Overdrive's profit, and it's to the tune of $750 million. So I find myself becoming less and less a fan of these giant organizations by the day, especially when it's monetizing information and the access to information. So really appreciate the thought leadership there, and my personal recommendation is to continue to push the consortium and everything we can do as adamantly as possible with those sorts of organizations. I would not be upset if we made them a little angry with our request. And I think she was trying to be polite, but I don't know that we need to be so polite with an organization like that. Get the e-media.
Heard it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No
Treasurer
kidding.
Larson.
I really enjoyed Elizabeth's report, and I think she did a great job explaining it and explaining the costs. I mean, a lot of people probably don't have a clue about it. So, yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Eye-opening.
Thank you, Secretary Sullivan.
Not to be redundant, but I really enjoyed Elizabeth's presentation. I do
Yes.
a lot of audiobooks, so it was interesting to hear some of the cost information and the cost model. A little disheartening though.
Mhm.
And I do enjoy the quarterly write-ups
Yeah.
when the department heads do that.
Agreed.
Other than that, stay warm, everybody.
Thank you. Trustee Brian.
So the same thing, enjoyed the report, makes you think twice when you're just gonna check something out on Libby if you're not sure you're gonna read it. I'm thinking, gosh, I feel a little guilty sometimes about maybe something. So, that's great information. Just enjoyable. I love these quarterly reports. So thank you. And I also just wanted to say that some of my friends came to the Headshot program and they said it was fantastic. In fact, my one friend shared his headshot today on Facebook. It was very nice.
Excellent.
So and it was he had texted me and said I shared the library post. I know Emily does that a lot too, and that's how he caught it. Like, sometimes
Nice.
things end up in the back. So, those posts really do sometimes make a difference. So yeah, what a great service. So hats off to whoever thought of that. Okay,
Excellent.
great job.
Okay, and I'm last, echoing the sentiment about how much Elizabeth's presentation was definitely valued. I really like the fact that, that you had that idea to have the department directors here to present once a quarter. I mean, it's been great hearing Paul the last time, hearing Elizabeth tonight. I'm looking forward, well, if I'm still on the board, the next quarter to hearing the next department director. So it's just been really a nice addition. So thank you for that. And I don't have anything else. So last item on the agenda is to adjourn. May I have a motion and a second?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned at 7:49 p.m.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Emily.